October 1st, 2024. Well, the year is three-fourths over now, and so, at any rate, I'm going to go ahead and kind of get updates on some of the trends in the campaign um, uh, uh, election here, 2024. On the presidential front, to begin with, well, as of this recording, the Real Clear Politics average is Harris up 2%. Um, and I think the polls within that vary between the highest. I think there's an Atlas Intel has Trump up 3%, and I think Reuters Ipsos. So some of those. There's another one out there too, and Morning Consult. They're in the Harris up 5 and 6%, which are the most extreme polls. I think some of the more credible polls. You got Quinnipiac, I think at a tie. Remember, Quinnipiac tends to trend Democrat. I think New York Times, Sienna's Harris up 1 point. And so, I mean, if you use that as a basis and look at things like Rasmussen up 2 points, it looks to me like the race is at worst kind of a tie on the national level, which now when we look at the 7 battleground states, your Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada, which are considered the main battleground states. I think the Real Clear average has Trump up 0.1%, and it looks like that he's ahead in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona, and Harris ahead in the others. If you put that into an electoral college vote, that would be Trump at 281 and Harris at 250 something. At any rate, the point is that would be a clear Trump win electorally. And that is and I actually tend to think that may be a little bit on the pessimistic side from reality. I mean, either the popular vote is really way over, as I've said in other cases, the popular vote is either really much more over toward Harris nationwide, or else, on the other hand, you'd probably have Trump further ahead in these swing states. I think the last I saw, there's it looks to me like that Trump's doing better than he had a little bit now. My sense is that Harris, in some of her interviews and attempts at communication, have really not gained her anything. That she really is looking less and less credible. And the original glow of, gee, we got some alternative between Trump and Biden, so Harris is okay, is starting to fade away, and now maybe Harris isn't really that good. Maybe we ought to go with Trump. I kind of think that's the issue. I think her, as I mentioned in the previous video, I think her trip to the border was a kind of a bust. It looks totally hypocritical and ridiculous. I mean, she's trying to, all of a sudden, after causing a problem for 3.5 years, they are the ones that did open the border. Now they're trying to claim they're the solution, that Trump, by not supporting a really bad border bill, somehow is the problem, which is absurd. I mean, and in fact, so that's one of the aspects of this thing, and so, but we'll have to see what, as the week goes on. There'll be new polls coming in that may shift it one way or the other. But I tend to think maybe Harris is losing a little ground. The Democrat Senate candidate in Michigan was saying that Harris is behind in the internal polls. Of course, that could be misdirection of some sort, too. I don't know. But one thing you have to realize is there's other factors that are going to play on this, and I'll get into them in a little bit here. But if you like these videos, give me a like. I appreciate that. It helps the algorithm. I look for more subscriptions. Thanks to our 2 new subscribers. And, of course, you can click the bell for notifications if you have a YouTube account. And if you're on Rumble instead, I got the information below on how you can subscribe to me on Rumble. Get the same material on either site. Because some people will run into this on the various postings I do on social media and aren't really, I don't know which you'd be a member of, or none of the above. Okay, so the other things that are playing into this here is you're having a developing, right, as of today, it looks like Israel's beginning to conduct intensified operations in Lebanon against Hezbollah. apparently took out the major leader of Hezbollah in a massive airstrike the other day, and they've had a bunch of lesser leaders, and of course we have the famous pager attack and so forth. So the point is now that ground forces are beginning to move in there as well, and of course, as long as the administration can't do anything about it to stop it from their point of view, the Muslim vote in places like Michigan might not turn out for them as much. And so that may actually help Trump out in a way. Um, and another thing that's pending is this, as of this recording, we'll be seeing shortly. It looks like we're having a dock workers strike, which could have some economic impact. And of course, Biden is very reluctant, being his pro-union stance, to impose the Taft-Hartley Act. We'll see whether he does or not, but that could end up in a situation, it would be a problem for the Democrats also. And it couldn't happen to a nicer group of people either. But anyhow, of course, it's possible that there'll be some last-minute deal to slow it down or something. I'm not sure exactly how that'll play out at this moment, but the tensions of that sort are not favorable. And then we have the Hurricane Helene and the massive damage it created across some of the battleground states, particularly Georgia and North Carolina. And it looks like the Biden-Harris relief effort is somewhat a little bit like the Katrina thing that happened to George W. Bush back, I think, in 2005, I believe. And similarly with Harris having a flyover and Biden not even being much on the job and so forth. And I think there's some question whether or not we have a political appointee heading FEMA that may be done for reasons other than the most qualified. We'll see how that plays out. I'm a little too early to call on that. But the point is, when negative things like that or a COVID pandemic happen on your watch, it tends to be harmful to you often. On the other hand, Obama was able to use Hurricane Sandy much to his advantage in the 2012 election, if we recall, in which it basically shut down the final campaign push on the Republican side at a critical moment, which might have been significant, although it probably wouldn't have changed the ultimate outcome. It's hard to know on that. So, at any rate, so those are things that are in play here that could have impacts on the election. The other thing that's kind of notable, I'm kind of a little bit interested. There's two, when you look at the Democrat states, and I point out that that about 4.5% of the vote is overvote in the Democrat states where they have more votes than they need, and affects the national average, in certain ways. But on the other hand, two large Republican-leaning states, Florida and Texas, they aren't being polled very well publicly. I don't know what's being happening, in the internal campaign polls, but I do know that some of the sort of fringier polls that have come out are showing very tight races there for both Trump and for the Senate candidates, so Scott and Cruz. And so we'd have to wait and see, exactly how that pans out. But that could lead to a real shock if any of those were to flip. I doubt it's really going to happen, but it is a possibility you have to watch out for. And one thing on the positive side, so far it looks like Tim Sheehy is doing fairly good against Tester in Montana, and that's a key race that in a kind of a surprise-free Senate campaign would give the Republicans control of the Senate, because I think we're going to definitely pick up West Virginia. And so if none of these upsets occur, which I doubt they really will, but it's possible. One thing to look at, there's an interesting thing developing also in Nebraska, is that the Democrats are playing one of their tricks. When you have a state where it's very solidly Republican, instead of running a Democrat, they basically punt on that, and they run an independent who actually is a Democrat, of course, and who will caucus with the Democrats if he were to win, of course. But they run this independent candidate, which is apparently getting some play because the politically naive out there probably may fall for it. I doubt ultimately it's going to work. They've tried that, I remember historically, I think in both Utah and Kansas in previous elections, I can recall. And we'll see how this one plays out. But it's the same tactic they are known for doing. So, by the way, everybody in Nebraska, don't vote for the independent, vote Republican. I mean, remember, this is a team sport, and even somebody like Hogan and Maryland, if this individual, if he could win, even though he's not endorsing Trump, and he will be a problem. Remember, the key thing is to keep enough numbers, because the strategic thing is preserving the filibuster. That will prevent almost all the horrible things that a Kamala Harris agenda would want to pass, except for the things they can do by direct executive action. But remember, as the Supreme Court is protected, then you can get court rulings against them. If they pack the Supreme Court, the Constitution, we know it, is now meaningless, because it'll just be whatever liberals want it to mean. Remember, their interpretation of the Second Amendment is that the government has a right to keep and bear arms, not that you do. And I'm sure that the First Amendment is under attack too. Former Senator Kerry, is saying that the First Amendment's a threat, and so-called disinformation needs to be banned. Except for one thing: who decides what's valid information, and what's disinformation? I guess people like Kerry, right? But maybe he's wrong. Maybe his information is the disinformation. See, and that's another amendment that's under threat, and all the others probably are too, ultimately, because these guys want absolute power. I can't stress that enough. This is not, we're no longer in the idea, well, it's this or that, and it doesn't matter, and we'll get back in 4 years. This is not the world we're in now. This is a battle for all the marbles, and people better believe it. So anyhow, these are the issues that front. Like I said, I doubt that these polls that are being thrown out in Texas and Florida will pan out. And I certainly hope Senator Scott better get out there and with the relief effort and be handing out some supplies and stuff, and be showing himself on TV participating now. These are very important things to deal with. One thing to understand, the Democrats seem to be flush with money, so I still recommend that people contribute to the Republican campaigns if you can afford it. Don't give them your cell phone number, by all means. Don't do that. And if you have to give them an email address, well, I guess you do. And well, but I think it's easier. I think it's less annoying to delete a bunch of spam emails from them every day than it is to put up with continuous text minute by minute on your phone. So anyhow, but it's really important to do that, and I've certainly I've done what I've said. I mean, I think I've given over 1% of my income for the year. Let's put it that way so far. So, I'm putting my money where my mouth is on this. I think. I mean, obviously, be reasonable. Don't go overboard. I mean, because any one individual could do nothing and it wouldn't matter at all, granted. But if everybody that thought like you did the same thing, it would matter a lot. So anyhow, so that's that, and we'll hope for the best. Another thing to mention here real quick is there's a movie out now by Dinesh D'Souza, vindicating Trump, and it's a neat political show. I would encourage anybody to see it if they want to. It's kind of an enjoyable critique of the way the media and other interests have treated Trump and so forth, and I kind of enjoy his things anyhow. So at any rate, I guess that's about it for this time. I'll be wrapping this up, and as always, you can follow me, my updated thoughts on the social media, particularly on X, and the addresses of my social media accounts are in the description below for all the others. And of course, this is posted on Rumble and YouTube both. Until next time.